So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the EDC of the UK's Attorney General, talking about time to complete Brexit in the wake of the Rwanda flight grounding. So for some reason, she's conflating the ECHR, which we signed up to way before we joined, to any predecessor of the EU. It's just ridiculous. This is, pure culture war. This is a member of the ERG, or former member of the ERG. She's not very bright, and I'm going to put that gently so I don't get demonetised. The UK AG said it's time to complete Brexit and let the British people decide who can and cannot stay in our country after a European court decision which effectively grounded the first flight to send asylum seekers out of the country. And to be fair, there were 3 people out of the 7, I think it was, that the ECHR wanted to hear their case. They put the temporary injunction in for. They still could have sent the plane. This was a political stunt. They had the ruling hours before, the injunction hours before the plane was set to fly. This was very much pure theatre from the British government to make it look like the ECHR stepped in at the last minute. Judges at the ECHR granted last-minute interim measures. See, this is what I mean here, and this is people buying into the narrative. From what I've read, the injunction came hours before the plane was set to fly. But this is how a narrative becomes into almost fact, where people keep repeating it. This is still a topic being discussed in the government, but I have significant reservations about our relationship with the European Court of Human Rights, said Braverman. They are rightly baffled why our immigration controls can still be blocked by European judges. I mean, they wanted to hear their asylum claims. That's why it was blocked. It's not hard to figure out, honestly. Patel has previously described the court's decision as politically motivated, while Dominic Raab said it was wrong for the injunction to be granted. I mean, no, they wanted their asylum claims, I believe, to be heard out. That was the whole point of it. The row has led to calls from the Tory MPs to pull out of the European Convention of Human Rights, but if we did that, we would potentially be in breach of the Good Friday Agreement, so that doesn't sound very smart, does it? Something which Number 10 and Braverman have not ruled out, though it appears unlikely the government would want to take that kind of step, but they are looking at reforming the Human Rights Act. I need to do a bit more reading on that. Rob said the UK would stay within the convention, but new laws could ensure that interim measures from Strasbourg Court could effectively be ignored. And speaking of courts that we should leave and that should have no ruling over us, why don't we just leave the UN? UN court rejects UK claims to Chagos Islands in favour of Mauritius. Why don't we just leave that as well? They've condemned us. Why should a foreign court have ruling over us about where we can and cannot put our military bases? Who the hell are the UN anyways? Let's get rid of them. Get rid of our place in the United Nations Security Council. Screw that. Let's get out of the WTO as well. A challenge by the EU on the contracts for different schemes were brought to the WTO on the 28th of March 2022. Why don't we get rid of our place in the WTO? Why should a foreign court have ruling over the way we give out subsidies to our companies? It's ridiculous. Why don't we just get rid of that as well? Get rid of the UN, get rid of the WTO, and while we're at it, right, I want to say that the Supreme Court in the UK is in London, right? It's in a far off place. I don't live that close to London. Why should they have any ruling over me? I want to get rid of them as well. Why not? It should be a court in your local town that has jurisdiction over you. Because why should some foreign, court that's far away from me, it's different, different culture in London compared to where I live. Why should they have say over me, huh? Why do we sign up to these things? It's just ridiculous that the statements this government comes up with. Not the last one, that was me being stupid, obviously. But point being is that, the European Court of Human Rights exists to protect our human rights. It's basically the last thing there to protect us. It doesn't typically get involved. They put in an injunction. Maybe after the court cases are heard, we'll see what happens. But for the government to use this in their culture war doesn't surprise me. But at the end of the day, they're using this to get rid of our human rights. And people in this country should be careful. Because the same things they use against people you don't like, they might use it against people you do like. A notable case is Steve Bray. They've used the anti-protest laws against him, or to stop them using it against you at your next noisy protest. And I'd be very careful. I'd be very, very careful, because it is a very slippery slope at this point. But for the UK Attorney General to kind of conflate Brexit with the ECHR is just ridiculous. But you could argue she's not very bright, or maybe she knows exactly what she's doing to feed this into the culture war. But then again, she is also the same politician that said we would get a windfall from the European Central Bank because of Brexit. So maybe she's not actually that bright. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.